Opening the next meeting, which is the Flood Control District meeting, Tuesday, November 14th, 2023 at 10 a.m. Board of Supervisors Hearing Room, 1415 Melody Lane, Building G. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.02H, the public will have physical access to the meeting place 15 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. Any item on this agenda is open for discussion and possible action. We'll have roll call again for fun. District 1?
Crosby is here.
District 2?
Supervisor English is present.
And District 3 Supervisor Judd is here. Members of the public may also attend this meeting via Microsoft Teams computer or mobile app or via phone by calling 602-609-7513 or 888-680-6714. Conference ID 526-443-916#. If you have trouble accessing this meeting remotely, call 520-432-9200 for direction. The board may permit public comment during the discussion of any item on this agenda. To speak on an agenda item, complete and return the speaker request form to the clerk of the board prior to the start of the meeting. This meeting has a call to the public noted, and I don't have any speaker forms. I'm just double checking for the call to the public on this item. So there is not going to be a call to the public on this meeting. There is also a consent agenda item to start with. Item number 1.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve consent agenda item 1, the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 The chair votes aye and the motion carries unanimously. Item number 2 is an item tabled. We are bringing it back.
It's a public hearing.
And it is a public hearing. Okay. I also don't have any forms for that, but
First, Madam Chair, we have to untable the matter.
okay. Can we untable it?
Madam Chair, I move that we remove the item from the table from October the 10th, 2023 of the Flood Control District meeting.
And that was a motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 The chair votes aye and the motion carries. So now that it's untabled, I'm going to open a public hearing for this item. Adopt Flood Control District Ordinance FCD 052.23. And is there anyone who would like to speak to that item? Thank you, Joaquin.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Yes, is there a slide at the presentation? Okay. So this is to adopt the floodplain regulations ordinances for Cochise County. Next slide, please. So our floodplain regulations started in, they were adopted in 1984. The current regulations that we have were adopted in 2015. And we are updating regulations to comply with the state of Arizona's floodplain management model ordinance, June of 2023, and also with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, National Flood Insurance Program, and the Agricultural Structure and Accessory Structures. That's Bulletin E-2140. Next slide, please. Okay, the proposed changes that we have were included in Section 2 definitions to follow the state of Arizona Floodplain Management Model Ordinance and FEMA's floodplain management requirements for agricultural structures and accessory structures. We did revisions in Section 5, provisions for flood hazard reduction. The reason it was tabled the last time was for this first item requires that all new habitable structures to have a minimum of 12 inches elevation positive drainage from foundation wall, foundation or stem wall. So basically it's if somebody is building in a zone X where the floodplain regulations aren't required to be elevated. In a zone X, if your wall or your finished floor, our requirements are to elevate it 6 inches above and then to slope away so that way that water, anything that gets close to it, that it goes around the house and keeps it, out of that flood harm's way.
So it isn't for all property, it's for property located in
the zone X.
Zone
yes,
X.
for the FEMA flood hazard areas or Cochise County's floodplain regulation values of 500 cubic feet per second. In those areas, we're requiring that everything be elevated minimum foot above that determined water surface elevation, which has always been in our regulations prior to. This is just to try to gain more credits with the community rating system.
And as that is part of what I do and as a lay person, not the board chair, I know that every home I draw has that. 12 inches is just standard. You have your finished floor and you have your drainage away. And you've changed it so it's not just finished floor, but it's the top of the stem wall in case there's a basement, because then your stem wall comes up above.
Right.
But so that's the only change you made. But it's standard. We're not making this up, and I wanted to make that clear.
That's correct. So in our 2015 International Residential Code that we follow, that Development Services follows, the information is in there that those elevations be a minimum of the 6 inches and then to slope away from
Right.
the top of the wall.
Well, thank you.
The other ones were to clarify agricultural and structural structures are inclusive to non-residential construction. So before, a lot of people, they're building agriculture that they're exempt. Nobody is exempt from from FEMA. Basically, whenever you build in a flood hazard area, you have to meet those requirements to elevate, to keep out of harm's way. In some cases, you can flood-proof, and flood-proof you can dry flood-proof or wet flood-proof. Dry flood-proofing means basically you can build your structure at ground level. You just have to have like a membrane or some type of sealer to seal that, so whenever the floods do come, that it's sealed. The other option is to wet flood-proof, and that's to allow that water to get into your accessory structure. And so that way the water has, it doesn't push it out of the way. It can allow the water to get in.
It has a path.
Yeah, it has a path to go to. Yes. And then general land disturbance, inclusive information of adverse impact. So whenever you have big developments, adverse impact is to not, when someone is developing in an area, that whatever they develop, that water continues in the same path, that it doesn't cause any harm on the adjacent parcels. So it doesn't increase water surface on their properties, nor does it increase velocity by diverting water. Some people tend to build walls and build houses and build things, berms, to do that, and that's one of the requirements that Cochise County and many counties, all counties in the United States, is to not allow that diversion. In Section 6 variance procedure, we had a procedure for accessory structures and agricultural structures. Next page. The community rating system currently provides all citizens of Cochise County a 5% discount on flood insurance policies. We are working to try to get to the 10% level or a level 8. We're currently at a level 9. For agricultural and owner, the builder opt-out has never been exempt from the floodplain regs. A lot of people, whenever they come in, they think that because I'm opt-out, that I don't have to elevate. You do. It's always been that case ever since we've had our floodplain regulations.
Well, thank you. That looks like it's the end. Is there anything else?
No, ma'am. Any questions?
I don't have any.
I have some comments, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
But I don't need to ask you any questions, Mr. Solis. Thank you for your presentation. So my comments are that the necessity of a flood, or correction, there's a necessity for a subsidy for flood insurance under this 5% discount that we've talked about, which I believe is an example of involuntary redistribution of wealth. And under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, I don't see, which is the 18 enumerated powers of the federal government, I don't see any provision for FEMA. So I believe it is prohibited under the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. So we shouldn't be beholden to anything having to do with FEMA.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
I'm glad for the clarification because the public sometimes doesn't understand, or sometimes we don't understand, what's being brought in front of us. And it needed to be clarified that we're talking about areas that are prone to flooding, areas that are on the map. And so it doesn't apply to everybody everywhere. It applies to people, and that's why we call them floodplain regulations.
So we had a motion to remove it from the table. Do we need to have a motion that actually states what we're voting on? Okay.
Well, this is a public hearing, so you might.
Oh, we have a public hearing open still. Is there anyone who'd like to make a comment? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the Flood Control District Ordinance FCD 052-23, approving the revisions to the floodplain regulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the chair, is there any opposed?
Nay.
The chair votes aye and the motion carries. Okay, that is first I'll announce the next meeting, which is,
We have another on.
heard the page over. Boy, okay, that's why you're here. We have item number 3, if we could have a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we approve approve annual joint funding agreement J4Z FJF A000800100 between the United States Geological Survey and Cochise County to conduct hydrologic investigations and data collection in the amount of $97,625 effective October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024.
Madam Chair, I believe there were some, maybe there's typos on his, but the funding agreement was incorrect and the amount was incorrect.
No
So
kidding.
It was
Okay.
the funding agreement number is 24ZFJFA 000800100, and the amount is in the amount of $97,265.
Okay, with the
My apologies.
That's okay.
That's
The discrepancy, I thought we'll fix it right now.
Okay.
Okay, did you second it?
Yes, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mark Appel, our environmental projects coordinator, if you would join us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, supervisors. Again, we're coming to the board to request approval for this agreement between the USGS and the the Cochise County. This is our 19th year that we've been partnering with the USGS to collect data, hydrologic data in the Upper San Pedro Basin. And this monitoring data feeds directly into the modeling that we're doing under the auspices of the Upper San Pedro Basin, Upper San Pedro Partnership, the Sentinel Landscapes, Cochise Conservation Recharge Network, as well as the MOU that was signed between the county, the city, and the BLM and Fort Huachuca. So this is pretty important monitoring data. And as we said, we've been doing this for 19 years. And the last few years, we have seen a bit of a break on the amount of our contribution from the county because of funding that has come in through the Bureau of Land Management. And the good news is, at least in the next year after this fiscal year or two, we will be getting some, not the county, but the Upper San Pedro Partnership will be getting direct funding from USGS, from the Bureau of Land Management to assist USGS. And I should say that funding won't be coming to the partnership directly, but there will be new agreements between the Bureau of Land Management and USGS to help all of us monitor the river and the Upper San Pedro Basin.
Well, BLM in the past hasn't financially been able to support any of our efforts. And so I think that's great that they're finally coming up with some money for their land.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of this monitoring takes place in the basin, not just on the river.
Right.
So these are sites that are both connected and not connected to the river, but part of the Upper San Pedro Basin as a whole.
Well, thank you. Is there any other questions?
Yes, indeed. Like I said on the
Comments?
previous example, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution does not mention anything about the U.S. Geological Survey. And therefore, I believe that it violates the 10th Amendment of the Constitution.
Hearing no more discussion. Thank you, Mr. Appel. We have a motion and a second. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
And the chair votes aye and the motion carries. Thank you. Now, our next meeting is the Board of Supervisors regular meeting, and it's going to be right here, right now.